If you're having trouble sleeping, it can be difficult to know why. So I wanted to talk through 5 of the biggest causes of insomnia and what you can do about them today. Hey everyone, Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor here. I wanted to start with one of the most significant sources of insomnia, and you probably already guessed what it is. It's stress. Stress can often be a catalyst for insomnia, but a lot of people don't kind of understand why. So let's dig into some of the physiology behind that. Stress will amp up your fight or flight response, releasing something called cortisol into your bloodstream. So what happens is your body gets stressed and soon your muscles tense up, your heart rate is up, your brain starts working overtime. These are the physiological effects of stress on the body. And to be fair, all of that can make it really difficult to sleep. And when we're often not just worried about things inside our body, but we're often surrounded by sources of stress. Things like a high pressure job, money problems, relationship issues like maybe divorce, death of a loved one, also even dealing with chronic illness like pain. So when you crawl into bed at night, it's the only time where you actually don't have all of these different distractions. All of your thoughts just come flooding in. And the goal here is to try to be present and just allow yourself to feel sleepy. That's really what's most important. So I'm going to use an example of a person getting a divorce as a stressful event, and I'm going to walk you through all of the stages of how we see insomnia from a model perspective and how we like to attack it. So first of all, some people have what we call a predisposing factor. So maybe you're a little anxious. Maybe you have a little OCD. Maybe there's just a little bit about you that's a little bit on edge. Then an event happens. So let's say that you're pretty stressed out and now your spouse comes to you and says, here are the papers, I want a divorce. Whoosh! All of a sudden stress goes way up to here when it was down here, and you cross over that kind of insomnia threshold. Because before, yeah, you had some predisposing factors, but there wasn't some big thing that came in and made it difficult for you to sleep every single night. Now you got these papers in front of you, there's a divorce. Okay, we know that that's going to cause stress, but over the course of time, that really should, wind itself down. But here's what happens. Every time that you have to deal with that person again or pay alimony, that's a post-event reminder of the stress. And you guessed it, insomnia kicks back into gear, and in some cases can just stay there for an extended period of time. Also, losing sleep to stress can do a lot to elevate your cortisol levels. Again, going back to the biology, this makes it very difficult to turn off your mind the next night and the next night and the next night. It turns into this really strange sort of vicious cycle that's very, very difficult to break. Next, I'm going to talk about something new, bed confusion. Okay, I know this might be a new one for you, and it's kind of an interesting idea, like how could I be confused with my bed? I mean, I sleep in it all every night. Bed confusion is when your body fails to associate your bed with actually going to sleep. This typically stems from doing too many different activities in bed that are not directly related to sleeping. That could be reading, it could be doing the crossword, it could be having a late night snack, surfing your favorite social media. It all just kind of depends. So I want to tell you a story about a patient I had who, it was really quite fascinating. She would come home from work, get into her pajamas by like 5:30, 6 o'clock. Then she would bring her food next to her bed. She would have her computer. She would have the television on, and she would basically go back to work for 3 or 4 hours. She'd work until about 10. And in many cases, what was happening is she was basically falling asleep with the work on her lap. Then she would say, oh gosh, I've got to get to bed. She would clear off her bed, lie down, and then not be able to sleep. Why? Because at that point in time, her body was used to working in that space, not sleeping in that space. Remember, we're creatures of habit, and we learn to associate certain cues with a behavior. So when we lay in bed, watch TV, doom scroll on our phone, our brain and body start to respond to bed as a place to be activated, not a place to rest. Remember, again, it's a general rule. We really want you to use your bed for 2 primary purposes, sleep and sex. Do that and you'll avoid this reinforcement of problematic behavioral cues that keep your body from linking your bed to rest. You know what else actually causes bed confusion? Going to bed too early. Now, you've heard me say this a lot. Lots and lots of people with insomnia have a tendency to go to bed early because they think, if I need to be in bed by 10 tonight, regardless of whether I'm tired, well, if your internal biology isn't ready for that, you could lie awake and be restless, unable to sleep for quite a while. Remember, going to bed early doesn't necessarily help you out. I'm a big fan of sleep according to your chronotype, and that might mean going to bed earlier or going to bed later. If you don't remember what your chronotype is, head on over and take my sleep quiz at sleepdoctor.com. There's a link in the corner right here. Next, back pain. Anyone who's dealt with back pain before knows it's the worst. When I was living in Arizona for about 6 or 7 years, one day a week, I worked at a pain center because people in pain don't sleep. And I really wanted to start to understand more about that because it appeared to me that it wasn't just kind of a garden variety insomnia. There was something specifically going on there. And what I was able to identify after interviewing probably north of 100 patients, one thing that when you've got pain, the very first thing as you're walking to bed, you're getting worried, and you're getting worried that you're not going to be able to get comfortable. That is always a problem with people in pain because they're like, oh, my bed, I need a new bed, or I don't have the right pillows, or I can't get in the right position. And that can, again, cause a level of stress, that nasty word that we've been talking about that you really don't need. The second thing that they're really worried about is that their meds are going to stop working in the middle of the night. And by the way, this happens. So sometimes right in the middle of the night, their pain medication might wear off. They wake up, they're in excruciating pain. Talk about trying to get them back to sleep. That's oftentimes incredibly difficult. So that can be a really big problem. Also, the third one is, what if they hurt themselves while sleeping? Like their bed is not supportive enough. As an example, my wife has 4 torn discs in her back. And sometimes we're concerned if she doesn't sleep in the same spot, because if she twists or turns, she could actually throw her back out while she's sleeping. This is, again, something that a lot of people in pain have a tendency to worry about. One small wrong turn, one small wrong direction, guess what? You feel like you've been stuffed into a trash compactor. Pain can make it very difficult not only to fall asleep, but to stay asleep, which, as you guessed it, is one of insomnia's trademarks. So 3 quick tips to start addressing sort of the root of this problem. Number 1, remember to stretch, okay? I tell this to my pain patients all the time, and a lot of you are like, oh, I don't want to get on the ground. I don't want to deal with it. I promise you. If you can do a 5-minute stretch in the morning and then something right before you go to bed at night, it's going to make a world of difference for you. Don't overdo it, but maybe a 5-minute stretch in the morning, especially as you get older, can loosen up those muscles and get you off to a good start. The second thing I tell people to do is put a pillow in between your knees. Sometimes this can help alleviate pressure that's either on your hips or your spine. And also, don't forget the importance of your mattress. I gotta be honest with you, especially for people with back pain, the right mattress can relieve pressure, align your spine, and keep you supported throughout the night. That's not an easy thing to do. And so really understanding and matching yourself up with the right bed can really make a tremendous difference. If your back pain persists, you really should consider checking with a healthcare provider to determine the cause of the pain and potential therapies that you can get on the road to your recovery. Okay, here's a third one, and it's a biggie: menopause. Menopause can also be a large contributing factor in insomnia. That's because menopause is driven by a drop in the production of estrogen and progesterone. Okay, little quick biology lesson for everybody who doesn't remember. Estrogen is known for being a hormone that regulates reproductive function as well as the menstrual cycle, but it contributes to better sleep. Higher estrogen levels are connected to less waking up during the night, as well as an easier time falling asleep. Progesterone, on the other hand, helps prepare the body for pregnancy, but it also regulates your mood, protects against anxiety. Remember, mood and anxiety affect sleep a lot, and contributes to a sense of calmness. It's been linked to an increase in the production of GABA, which is kind of what I call the brakes of the brain. It's a neurotransmitter that seems to slow things down. As the production of these hormones declines, it can throw off the delicate balancing act that the body performs to regulate your mood, your energy level, your libido, and you guessed it, your sleep. What's more, hot flashes are a part of menopause that can, for many people, seriously impact sleep as well. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a patient that I had that was pretty interesting in terms of understanding what was going on with her from a menopausal standpoint. Her biggest symptom was, you guessed it, these hot flashes. She called it her own heat wave or having her own private summer. She was actually cooling her room so that it was like, 60 something degrees every night, like 60, 61, 62. Her bed partner was shaking cold all the time. And the truth of the matter is she would have a hot flash. Then because of the perspiration, the cold air would hit it. It would wake her up. She would have to wipe herself down, change clothes. As you can imagine, it gets pretty much into a mess. And so one of the things that we did was we actually got her a cooling mattress pad. You might be wondering, hold on a second. I didn't even know there was such a thing as a cooling mattress pad. There really are. There are now a couple of companies where they'll make an overlay that goes over your bed, but under your sheets. And they'll have a thin tube. You can't feel the tube, and maybe hot water or cold water will run through it. And that can be very helpful in lowering your core body temperature. The tools that are out there are really quite good, but for some people, they might be a little bit on the expensive side. So before you go out there and run and grab one, I will tell you about my favorite technique, which is my water bottle technique. So what you do is you take a plastic water bottle and you stick it into the freezer, maybe even two, and then you put each one inside of a tube sock. That way the direct cold doesn't touch you. And then you put one on your outer hip and the other on the other outer hip. And what I can tell you is it's like having your own personal little air conditioning unit. It doesn't get wet in the bed, but it does definitely keep you cooler. And then you just take them in the morning, stick them back in the freezer, and then bring them back for you. Okay, we're on to a new area, which is diet and sleep. Researchers from Columbia University found that diets high in refined carbohydrates have been linked to a higher risk of developing insomnia. That means soda, sugary foods, white rice, white bread are all foods that you might want to eat in moderation or, if you can, get them out of your diet. So remember, when you eat sugary and carbo-loaded foods, your body releases insulin in response to a rapid increase in your blood sugar. Then when your blood sugar drops, hormones like adrenaline are released, which can make it harder to fall asleep. When that carb and sugar craving hits you, you can try eating a serving of fruit instead. While they still contain sugar, the high fiber content of fruit helps moderate blood sugar spikes that can impact sleep. So as an example, I'm going to tell you about somebody who doesn't do it the right way that we had in our sleep lab a few years ago. So when I was practicing in Georgia, I'll never forget, I was in late at night and the tech called me over and they said, Dr. Bruce, you need to check something out. We had a patient and all of a sudden they would look both ways. The sheets would come up in front of their face and then they would pull it down and they'd be doing this. They'd be chewing, right? So I was like, I wonder what's going on. Then they'd do it again and they come back down, chewing again. So we went in, knocked on the door and we said, hey, it looks like you might be eating something. She pulled back the covers and she had one of those things that you get at Christmas, those 4-pound Hershey bars. I'm not joking. It was like this thick and she was like gnawing on it on the end because that was what she liked to do. She did this at home. She had sugar right before bed. Well, I'm here to tell you a 4-pound Hershey bar is probably not what you're looking for. Okay, last one, and this one's kind of interesting. Let's talk about napping as a potential cause for insomnia. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but napping in and of itself can make it difficult or lower your sleep drive. I want to be very clear. Naps are not bad for you, but they're not so good for people with insomnia because, again, it lowers their sleep drive. In fact, a well-timed nap can actually come with numerous health benefits. It can give you an energy boost, elevate your mood, improve physical performance. But remember, you don't want to do anything with a nap that's going to interfere with your ability to fall asleep at night. As an example, I'll tell you about a DJ that I work with. He's a very popular DJ. You guys all know him. His name is Steve Aoki. And one of the things we know is Steve doesn't go on until 11, 12 o'clock at night. So he's almost like a shift worker. So one of the things that we suggested he do is take a 10 to 15 minute nap before he goes on, because let's be fair, he goes on at 11:30. He's not coming off stage till probably 3 a.m. So in many cases, napping just before an event can really be quite helpful for you. But once again, if you've got insomnia, napping's probably not the way to go. So that means I want you to look out for two things. First, take your naps in the early afternoon. Anything I'd say after 2 p.m. is going to threaten to make it harder to sleep at a normal hour. Second, stay away from taking long naps. Anything past 90 minutes and you really run the risk of not feeling like you need to go to sleep at bedtime, even if your body isn't completely rested. Instead, again, a 20 to 30 minute power nap is a great alternative, and a short nap in the afternoon can help you power through the rest of your day and avoid sabotaging your sleep. At this point, maybe you've recognized yourself in some of these behaviors and conditions that are actually promoting insomnia. Besides working towards making some of the adjustments we talked, what else can you do to improve the quality and quantity of your sleep? My best advice, pay attention to your sleep habits, or what a lot of people call sleep hygiene. These are things that promote sleep, and most of them are pretty easy to do. Keep your room dark and cool, go to bed and get up at the same time each day. If you can, keep screens out of the bedroom. Create a routine that you can follow each night, and this will actually be a signal to your body that it's time to wind down. Also, get some exercise in, especially outside in the sunshine in the early part of the day if possible. But if you do all of these things and you still can't sleep, it's probably a good idea to talk with a physician. And the good news is that there are some really great science-backed techniques that are drug-free and that last a lifetime, starting with cognitive behavioral therapy. So for more on some excellent treatments available for insomnia, check out my video right here. I know restless nights can be super frustrating, but if it stems from one of the sources that we've talked about, then there is relief on the other side. This is Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, wishing you sweet dreams.